The Voices Unheard program at Boston Post Adoption Resources is designed to empower adult adoptees in expressing their personal stories and to expand public knowledge and awareness around lived adoptee experiences. Program goals are accomplished through adoptee-centered writing workshops, adoptee-created blogs and other online material, use of Voices Unheard, a reflective journal for adult adoptees, and Voices Unheard Real Adoptee Stories, which is our annual live speakers forum designed to educate the greater Boston community through creative expression and storytelling. Hello, welcome to Adoptees in 3, connecting mind, heart, and action. This is our very first installment of the new interview series that's produced by Boston Post Adoption Resources, specifically within the Voices Unheard program. In this series, we're going to be asking adoptees 3 enlightening questions about the current state of their adoptee journey and how it's sitting in their mind and heart. We are going to be inquiring into the meaning and purpose their activisms brought to their life, and we hope to have a wide variety of backgrounds, ages, and types of adoptees on the show. I'm Elsie Coppola, an adoptee myself and program director of Voices Unheard, and I'm an adoption trauma-informed therapist. And I'm very excited to bring you our first guest this morning, Sara Easterly. Hi, Sara.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes, we're so glad you're here. Sara is an adoptee advocate, educator, speaker, and so much more. She's the founder of Adoptee Voices, which is a writing group and online storytelling community. She's the author of many articles and essays, as well as her illuminating and multi-award-winning memoir, Searching for Mom. Recently, she co-authored Adoption Unfiltered, Revelations from Adoptees, Birth Parents, Adoptive Parents, and Allies, along with a birth mother and adoptive mother. Sara is a trained course facilitator in attachment with the Newfield Institute, which they teach an attachment-based developmental approach to child development. She's also a podcast host of Adoption Unfiltered, video podcast, and last but not least, she's the narrator of both her audiobooks. But in addition she's also the author of the Newsweek article that came out yesterday that I saw last night. That's so awesome. The article is called, I told my mom I wanted to find my birth mother. It blindsided her. Been seeing that all over social media the past 24 hours. Yeah. So I've been following you for years now. It's really good to meet you, and I'm seeing you all, your book, Adoption Unfiltered. I'm seeing you, traveling and doing talks. And how have you been holding up through this book journey?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. I know, and I've been seeing you everywhere, and I just want to give a plug that you wrote a piece that's how I first, I guess,
Oh, yeah.
met you, was that you wrote something for Adoptee Voices
Yeah.
for a blog, and I
Yeah.
have your book, your beautiful book, Your Voices Unheard. So thank you for writing this journal. Yeah, and it's a roller coaster. It's really exciting to have, feel a part of this momentum, because I do feel like people are starting to listen to adoptive voices like outside of our circles. And so it's really exciting. It feels like the voices are not unheard, like they're getting heard now, more and more. I still feel like we have headway, but it does feel like a real honor to be a part of this wave. And Newsweek was great. I will just share, that essay that I wrote was hard to get published. I've been working on getting that piece published since the fall. And I was going to just kind of give up. And then someone told me about Newsweek, and I was like, oh, I hadn't thought of Newsweek. And so I pitched it to Newsweek, and they accepted it. So, it's like, there's a lot of highs and lows in in this work of getting your work out there and trying to be heard. And so there were lots of moments where I did feel unheard. And then you get heard. So it's just persistence is so important.
That's a good
And
message. I need to hear that
yeah,
message. Trust
yeah.
me. Yeah,
Okay, good. Yeah.
it's hard. It's, you submit to so many places and yeah. And there's a lot of, I think that people are scared still to touch on the darker, sadder parts of adoption. So I think it's like sometimes I forget because we're so immersed in this world. Like I'll meet someone new and I guess I kind of put my thoughts on them or my opinion on them. Like I'll just assume that, this new friend like totally gets adoption trauma. And then I'm like, oh yeah, they really still don't. Like it's
Yeah. Yeah, on both sides. I have that too. And I do get hopeful because when I talk to friends and if, I do, I have to kind of zip it sometimes. I just want to talk adoption all the time. But when I talk to friends who like I'm getting non-adopted friends understanding. They do get it when you and they interest when you explain. They're like, "Oh, wow, I never thought of that." But it's just still the dominant narrative on all sides of politics, and just the mainstream culture is that adoption's this wonderful win-win thing, and there's not really a lot of scrutiny of the hardship that goes along with it.
right. Right. But it does seem like things are changing and
Yeah,
there's plenty of ways to like for people to tune in and learn now, especially,
yeah,
I mean, your book, for example, but um podcasts and I guess social media has really been blowing things up. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
all right, so we'll jump into these questions. We try to make the plan is to make these interviews, digestible in about 20 minutes. So I'll try to keep us on track. So the first question, which is the mind part of Mind, Heart, and Action. If you were to make a movie about your adoption journey, maybe your current adoption journey, what would you title the movie and why?
Mhm. I love this question. It's a hard question, and I don't feel like I'm not very good at titles, I will just say. So I was like, oh my gosh. And I could feel my perfectionism like rearing up, like, oh, I have to come up with the perfect title for this question you asked. Um, and part of me was like, oh, well, it would just be Searching for Mom. That's my book. Like a part of me is like, oh, it's done. I did that one, and I think it's just, I think so many
For
authors.
Mom, the movie.
Yeah, right, yeah, not just the memoir, yeah. Yeah, just the author thing of wanting to see, wanting your book to become a film. I think that's, just knowing
Yeah.
all my author friends, I think that's a pretty common thing that dream that we all kind of hold on to. But the thing with that though is my memoir is just a snippet of time, like if this is about my entire adoption journey, that's a piece of the journey, but you know you hit the end and the story continues. There's new ways you're always processing adoption. So I don't know, I guess something about resilience, maybe like toward radical resilience, or I
Yeah.
don't know, I came up with something like that, just continuing to be resilient and to adapt and to
Yeah.
grow.
That is so much of what it's about, is the resiliency,
Yeah,
you know, um, finding the silver linings, I guess. And I say that
I know.
knowing full well that like we're always pressured to find the silver linings,
Right.
but there's something about can you hold the pain? Can you hold the pain and acknowledge the pain and not suppress it, and also be able to see how the pain may have brought some beauty in. I feel so
Yeah.
nervous saying that, but
Uh,
that's been kind of
yeah.
maybe my experience with.
That's been my experience too. I love how you just worded that. That was really well put. And I think it's on our terms, and I think that we can have some resistance to doing that because it feels like the expectation, but when it's on our terms,
Right.
and
Right.
that's the distinguishing
Yeah.
piece for me is we are doing it for us, for our healing, not because it's expected. But it does, like, I think holding that pain, like you said, like that for me, I found when I could get to that, then I could also feel that beauty and feel the joys, because otherwise I was just flatlined, I mean, I
Mhm.
couldn't get there for either.
Yeah, you're just kind of like, I mean, Yeah. It's like detaching from all of it or feeling all of it, it's
Right. Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
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 All right, so we'll move into the next one, heart. So what advice would you give a younger version of yourself? But it can be any age. There's no requirement specifically, but is
Mhm.
there a specific age that really needed of a younger version of yourself that really needed to hear something from this more resilient version?
I would probably go back to my early years and early, elementary school years. I was painfully shy. It was, just hard to even be seen. I just wanted so badly to just blend in. And I think that's a common adoptee experience of just wanting to belong and fit in. But I didn't even want to be seen. I just wanted to kind of hide. And I would, and that continued, in lots of different ways. I got good at putting up kind of facades and shaking that off, but it still was there, and maybe it's still there. That's still kind of shy, shy person, being afraid to be her full self. But I would give her, you know, I would give her the advice to that you're going to find your voice and you're going to use it, and it's going to feel so good to do so. And really, that's kind of, I think, what drives me to with adoptive voices, um, to let other adoptees find their voices and use their voices. It's so powerful. I mean, I can't tell you how powerful it was to finish my memoir and to write my truth. And probably the most powerful part was realizing, I mean, I sent the beta reader versions out to my family, birth family and adoptive family. And that that time while they were reading it and processing it, and it was a lot for them to process.
Like, how no, like, what was that like for you?
Terrifying. It
Yeah,
was terrifying.
yeah.
And my adoptive dad took the longest. And I was sure that was it. Like, I was sure I'm losing all of them. And it really was like facing me into so much separation that I wrote my truth and they can't handle it. And it's over. Like, I'm disowned. I'm out. I really thought that would happen. And it didn't happen. I feel really lucky for that experience. But I was like, okay, they stayed. And it really kind of proved wrong my life thing that if I tell the truth, if I speak my voice, the people close to me are going to go away.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And so, and even if they had, I told my truth. So, there were multiple things in there that I was honoring myself. I didn't go away. So there were multiple layers to that,
You're not gonna leave yourself. Yeah.
right. Yeah, I'm here for you. You can share your truth. And so that's a big one. And I wish I had known that. I mean, that took me a long time to get there. And I wish I had known that. But even I will just say, like you mentioned the Newsweek article, I went through it yesterday. I sent my dad a link to the article and he didn't reply till today. And I'm like, oh my God, that's it. Like, I said too much, like, and nothing I said in there was new, but my brain does that, like he's going to go away. And I have to go through it every time, like this, kind of, no, it's okay. I have permission. I had to self-talk yesterday. Like, I told my truth. Nothing in there is me. It's not malicious. It's my truth.
Right. It's amazing how you went from like this young girl who just wanted to hide to like being so brave to be able to continue to tell your truth over and over. And like it's inspiring, I'm definitely like terrified of if my memoir comes out someday. It's and that idea of like being too much and talking too much about it, and it's, yeah, it's really inspiring to like talk to other adoptee memoirists that have been able to do it, and you're still going strong, and it's been good. Do you feel like you're closer with some of your family now, or?
I definitely feel like I'm closer with some of my family. I think, my mom passed, which is a big pivotal piece of my memoir, but we gained closeness through her death, which is a lot of what's in the memoir. But I'll share an example about my dad. So my dad, I grew up in, I was adopted at the tail end of the baby scoop era, and so it was a closed adoption. And it was closed in the house. Like, we didn't really talk about adoption. And then my dad is of the era where you don't talk about your emotions very much. And, there just isn't, it just wasn't how he was raised. He came from a ranching family, and, just a lot of, this just wasn't the family culture either. So, um, but he has so much emotion, and it's really sweet, but you have to know what you're looking for, because it's not always outward. But this is my point, is he came to my event in Denver, for Adoption Unfiltered, and that's where, I'm from Colorado, so he was at the event, and so was my sister and her family and my dad's new wife. And I was doing the same reading I did in all the cities, and it was about, it was about, family and claiming family, chosen or otherwise, or choosing them, not because of adoption, but choosing them.
Mhm.
And it felt like I had written those words, but it felt like this public truly claiming my family, my adoptive
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
And so I started crying, and it was just a really emotional night. And it was emotional from the beginning. As soon as my dad walked in, he was crying. And my
Oh,
dad, just like I said, he doesn't cry. Like,
yeah. So that's just like,
yeah.
yeah.
And then I'm gonna hold up this letter. He sent me, this long 2-page letter pouring his heart out,
Oh my God. Yeah,
right
forever.
after. Yeah, it is. It's like, keep it right here.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's so deep, and so, just going through our entire life together, and how proud he is of me, and proud of my advocacy, and proud that I'm helping other adoptees. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like, I, back to I never would have imagined that as a little girl. I wouldn't have imagined it 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago. Even right before the book came out, I kind of accepted, this is my work, and I don't know if my family really pays attention or
Yeah.
needs to. It's fine, but but yeah, yeah. So it's really meaningful, just to, my journey is still unfolding all the
Yeah.
time,
I'm
and
imagining like
sometimes through
that
my
little,
work.
yeah. I'm
Sorry.
imagining that. No, no, I'm imagining that little girl just seeing that scene of like your dad, showing up. And I mean, she would be so impressed with you, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. That seems like one of those days that's like a day that you'll always remember.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so we'll move into the action part of the questions, which is just how are you healing today? Like, what are you doing to help yourself heal today? What works for you? I know that you do a lot of inner work and outer work advocacy. What helps?
Um, I think it's interesting for me, because realizing this is in the action, my answer might belong in the heart, with the heart question. And because the biggest thing is the grief, and feeling the sadness, and it doesn't need to be specific to adoption.
Mhm.
It can just be feeling any feelings, but taking time and pausing to feel. So there's all the action, and I do think that's a big part of my healing too. But like, taking pauses from the action, and because I can distract myself with the action, it can be healing, and I know I'm helping others, but then if I'm doing too much action, then I'm not pausing to feel my feelings. It's just my ongoing temptation. I like, work is my addiction, and it is the way I flee from feeling. So I have to build in pauses. And we were talking before we started recording about horses. I do spend
Mhm.
a lot of time with horses, and sometimes even just, it doesn't even need to be like real long, but
Yeah.
I just had a recent experience. this was also, I have animals, so the animals help me to feel, because we have so many animals that there's always someone passing. And we had one of my really sweet guinea pig died a couple of weeks ago, and I was just heartbroken. It was a really beautiful death though. I held her, and it was a beautiful death, and just deeply meaningful to be there holding her on her way out. But I was really sad, and she was an older guinea pig, so there'd been so much elder care and a lot of just busyness taking care of her needs. But I was sad, and I'm in my 50s now, and it's not something that's necessarily socially acceptable always, which I don't like to, I have specific friends and places I can talk to, but some people think you're just a little oversensitive if you share about your guinea pig and how sad, I'm still grieving my guinea pig, I still am.
Yeah.
But I told the
It's only,
horse, yeah, I
it's
told the
only
horse,
2 weeks. Yeah, you
I
told.
know, I know. But I told the horse, and I was at the barn, and I was just like, I'm really sad today. My guinea pig just died. And I just started crying. And
Yeah.
it just felt like a really safe, sometimes people judge, but horses don't judge, or other animals don't judge. And so I just felt that um sometimes it's just quick. And I left, and I was like, oh my gosh, I needed to get that out. Like, I needed to
Yeah.
speak that out loud in a safe space. And today it was the horse, and now I'm saying it now, and I feel like I'm tearing up again, but it's pausing to do that,
Yep.
and doing that heart work, but remembering to do that. And I want to give one more plug for your journal. I haven't had the time to dive in and do this work, but I am so planning to, because it's the pausing and the reflecting that's just crucial, um, to being able to heal, and also then to do the action, and to do the action well. I think, and the action's a big part of it. I mean, it's really healing knowing that other people are inspired to tell their stories and to use their voices too. And like with Adoption Unfiltered, like my big driver was I wanted to normalize us to each other, like, and to other people. The diagnoses that we get, I grew up in isolation, so I just always thought I was crazy. And then you always hear people talking about their adoptees who have reactive attachment disorder, or this or that, and it's like, I started studying attachment, and I'm like, no, we're just responding like we're supposed to. We're human beings, and
Yeah.
so this is human dynamics with all the separation we face. Like, I wanted to normalize that. So it is really healing to speak that out loud again and again, and to like rewrite that story that I thought something was so wrong with me. And it's like, no, nothing was wrong with me. I was
Yeah.
reacting like my brain was wired to do.
Yeah.
So
Your stress response system was traumatized, and it shaped that way, because
yeah,
of this early loss. I mean,
yeah,
and there's no pre-trauma, depending on how old you were, like if the younger, there's no pre-trauma self. And usually even old, if you're adopted at older, there's still no pre-trauma self to get back to. So
yeah.
we're starting from there. Yeah,
Mhm.
I know. I'm so like, a lot of us, clinicians at BPAR, it's the diagnosis is often prolonged grief disorder, or complicated grief or something along those lines, because complex PTSD isn't an official diagnosis yet. Hopefully it will happen at some point, but that's
Yeah,
really what it is,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do really resonate with everything you just said. With the complicated grief and the prolonged grief and the complex PTSD. Absolutely. Yeah,
And when you lose, like any loss, I think triggers that like real deep initial loss. I remember I was doing some EMDR work. Have you ever done EMDR?
I have not. No.
It's kind of like, it's like you go into like the really deep hard feelings, but in a way where you're doing certain movements or you're watching a light, and it actually makes it so you're in the really deep hard feelings but kind of relaxed, similarly to going in the cold water while trying to relax, like we were talking about. But one of the things you have to do is you have to create a safe space with the therapist, like your perfect safe space before you even get into the work. So my safe space, and I didn't realize what it was for the first like 2 sessions, and then it hit me. But my safe space, I was like, I want it to be like salt crystal, like those pink salt crystal, you know, lamps, but surrounding me completely. And I want to be surrounded in this like ray of light that's like from the top. And I want to be like looking like that, but just like almost floating. And I'm like, oh, I'm in the womb. I'm like, I'm in the right. Like that was
Wow.
the space that I chose. I didn't even put together that it was that, because that was really the last maybe safe space before the trauma for so many of us.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's really moving. That's deep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
I really chapter 21, the chapter where you give the advice. I think it's the advice, for caretakers. Yeah, supporting adoptee maturation, advice for parents and other caregivers.
Yeah.
There's so much good stuff in here, and also like just it hits on every theme, we all have these different stories, but we have these things that are similar for all of us. This like hypervigilance, it comes out in different ways. Some people might avoid, some people might cling. Um, just all the different things that are talked about. It's all in here. And what I love too is that there's a lot of science in here. There's a lot of like pointing towards, you talk about Bruce Perry, you talk about a lot of the people that are talking about the architecture of the brain and how it's formed. And so it's not, it's a great mix between just like the qualitative interviews and research combined with like science to show like, I have a lot of people will prove separation trauma. Well, I think the book did. I really do. I feel like the book proves separation trauma. Um, so thank you for writing it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for reflecting that back, and thank you for reading it. And I really appreciate that. That means a lot. And yeah, yeah, especially with all of your expertise, it just, yeah, really feels good.
No. All right. Well, before we wrap up, if people want to learn more about you, where do they go? Where would
Um,
you?
yeah, probably the best is just my website, saraeasterly.com. That's probably the best starting point. And I have a lot of stuff on the adoptionunfiltered.com website as well. We have resources there and a book club discussion guide and everything, but you can just for easy memory, saraeasterly.com, and that links to all my socials too.
Nice. Well, thank you, Sarah. And we'll definitely keep tuning into the podcast as well. Um, and for our audience, stay tuned for our next Adoptees in 3, Mind, Heart, and Action, which will hopefully be coming up sometime soon.